In general, every organization is unique in terms of its technology, infrastructure, and related software services requirements. Furthermore, every organization in general has its own unique journey to cloud migration, with potentially many benefits. In other words, broadly speaking, every organization's journey to the cloud and the benefits it finds to some degree varies. That being said, in this lecture, we will discuss various advantages of cloud computing, such as increase in speed and agility, variable expense as opposed to upfront cost, which we usually see in the classic traditional computing model. The next advantage is cost reduction. We can measure what and how many IT resources we need, instead of guessing IT resource needs in the traditional computing style. Another advantage is the focus on the core business. Since IT resources are much more easily procured and managed, organizations can focus on the core business. And the last one here we have is making applications available to your global customers in just a few minutes. Making applications available to global customers is a bit time-consuming in a non-cloud computing model. Let's talk about each of these advantages in a little detail. Let's first start with increase in speed and agility advantage. In a cloud computing environment, provisioning resources are just one or a few clicks away. Furthermore, the capacity of the machines can be scaled up and down to handle request fluctuations, which in some domains vary heavily. Let's take the example of CNN. If some significant newsworthy event happens, the CNN website or apps will suddenly notice a heavy increase in traffic, which would result in a degradation of service quality. Cloud computing can be leveraged in this situation. You can scale up by launching more servers to meet the sudden increase in demand, and then scale down when traffic comes to normal. Moreover, services can be temporarily shut down if not required, or completely terminated if they are not needed to save cost. Lots of options are there for saving operating technology infrastructure costs as well. Let's take another example to understand how cloud computing helps improve speed and agility. Suppose an organization needs resources as soon as possible to do some POC, which is a shorter form of proof of concepts for some critical business requirements. They can tap into a cloud computing platform to get the resources quickly up and running. This helps organizations reduce the time to acquire resources, as the time it takes to make those resources available is reduced significantly, in many cases from weeks to within a few minutes. As you can realize from the examples, how cloud computing significantly increases speed and agility for organizations. Let's talk about variable expenses advantage. One of the advantages of cloud computing is the variable cost of cloud computing versus upfront capital expenditure in the traditional style. In cloud computing, you avoid buying servers upfront. Instead, you pay only for the services you use. Let's consider this with an example of an e-commerce company that is doing business around the year 2000 time. The company would buy high-end servers to scale up to meet the significant increase in demand during Christmas time. But during the time of the year when sales were not usually high, those expensive servers were not fully utilized and would remain idle for a while. On the other hand, in the cloud computing platform, say AWS, using auto-scaling service, you can configure it in such a way that new servers would be launched automatically when the load on the servers increases and terminated when the load on the servers decrease. You just need a few configurations. And the result is a considerable saving in cost. You see the point here, depending on how big the e-commerce organization is with respect to its technology infrastructure, this cost benefit would be significant if that e-commerce organization is transitioned to a cloud computing platform. Next, let's talk about how cloud computing helps in reducing costs. Another advantage of cloud computing is that organizations can benefit hugely in cost from massive economies of scale. By using cloud computing, organizations can achieve a lower variable cost than they would get on their own when buying individual servers, setting up VMs, etc. In other words, setting up one's own cloud computing platform can be very expensive depending on the goal, then leveraging the existing ones. Because thousands of customers are using the cloud providers, for example, Amazon Web Services, can provide cloud services at lower prices. Let's talk about another advantage: no more guesstimate of capacity. Usually, when you make a capacity decision for servers to deploy your applications, there is a higher likelihood that you end up having resources that are expensive and sitting up idle most of the time, or you end up having resources that are very limited in capacity. In other words, it's tough to do capacity estimations, which in some cases is true. That being said, there is no need to do a guesstimate for your infrastructure in cloud computing. In the cloud computing environment, you can measure how much capacity you require, and then, within a few minutes, you scale up or down as your requirements change. Another advantage is that organizations can use cloud computing platforms to focus on their core business. Cloud computing helps organizations focus on their core business. In other words, instead of powering their servers, network connectivity, bandwidth issues, security, and so many other things, they must deal with if organizations have their technology infrastructure in an on-prem data center. Organizations can change direction by transitioning to cloud computing platforms and stop spending money on running and maintaining their data centers. This allows organizations to focus on their core competencies in doing their business. The last we have here is making applications available globally. Another advantage of cloud computing is making applications available worldwide within a few minutes. Organizations can quickly deploy their applications to multiple locations worldwide with just a few clicks. This allows organizations to provide redundancy across the globe and reduce the application's latency. Having redundant deployment across the globe helps increase application availability. Reducing network latency helps increase applications' network performance. The availability and reduced network latency translate not only in increasing your customer's footprint, but your application's degree of usability as well. And the key point is that you get these at a minimal cost and time. There is one important point to bring attention to, which is the level playing field. Going global was very expensive in terms of cost and process, and only the organizations with deep pockets could afford to do it. But cloud computing makes deploying applications globally a level playing field. With cloud computing, it is possible for any organization to deploy its applications globally with minimal cost and time. In summary, cloud computing has transformed technology infrastructure. It has impacted almost all types of organizations. Traditional IT organizations, such as banks, insurance companies, or software engineering organizations of all sizes, large, medium, small, or startups. And the reasons are apparent. Cloud computing provides flexibility with so many choices, a few clicks away. With cloud computing, resources are easy to find and set up because of a high degree of configurability, and you have very good cost options, low variable costs, and pay for what you use. Moreover, nowadays, providers are giving some very good pricing options. You save big in cost and time with respect to how you used to get IT infrastructure resources in traditional IT. That's it for this lecture. I hope you have got a good general understanding of the various advantages of cloud computing